It's compounded by the fact that the victims are so very young. So some of the accounts that we're going to get are going to be told through the eyes of a child. Really, it is such an active crime scene, and I can imagine that the collective grief right now is so profound there.
Oh my goodness, I can't imagine for those parents who are sitting and waiting to hear word of their child, and to hear that this shooting was in perhaps a concentrated location, one classroom, one area, a certain grade. I mean, I just can't imagine being in that room with those parents when they got that news.
Right.
Well, 18 young bodies probably still lying in that school, and 18 sets of parents and family members at that fire station nearby waiting to hear what they probably already know because they haven't been reunited with their kids so far.
One fact that emerged that I found especially compelling and disturbing, I suppose, was the fact that they said it was so very quiet. There wasn't a lot of screaming. There were children who were whimpering and crying, but it was the sense of silence that existed because they knew they just had to get out of there, and they were listening to their teachers telling them to clasp hands and move quickly. So almost like little adults in the face of tragedy, they just took orders and followed them.
You know, I'm thinking, too, of the Wisconsin shooting at the Sikh temple, where we knew quite early on that law enforcement had responded to that scene after a call of violence, and that there was an encounter between a law enforcement personnel. One of the officers was shot. We knew that fairly early on. This they're not saying. So the speculation as to how this suspect actually did die, I mean, we have no idea. We have no idea if there was an encounter with law enforcement, he took his own life, or what happened there.
Right.
Well, if you just look at some of the numbers, I mean, 625 students, you figure, 15, 18, 20 students per class, so there were probably 36 classrooms in there, and the shooter targeted 2 classrooms in one section of the school, according to what we heard from the state police lieutenant there.
And we know his mother was a teacher.
Mother was a teacher there, so we don't know the layout of the school, but, like most schools, it would be rows and rows and rows of classrooms, so you would think that given the 911 call and a relatively rapid response would be a matter of minutes, that they would have engaged him and taken action.
As we try to put into our minds what the suspect might have been thinking, I mean, this shooting is very different from others that we've encountered, that we've covered over the years, with his mother being a teacher at the school.
Right.
What was going on with this young person? What was in his mind that he
and
would
what's happened in his life?
And so many others, so many little children.
Well, and that, I think, was the point that former Chief Bratton was trying to make, that sometimes if you could get into these social media sites, there are warning signs. You just don't wake up one day and say you're going to take out a gun and commit a mass murder. And so I think that is really the challenge of law enforcement, and quite frankly, all of us as citizens.
Look back to Klebold and Harris and Columbine with their videos and their rants and their behavior. But we have the First Amendment and we have the Second Amendment, and those are in direct conflict with preventing this kind of tragedy.
Well, we think too about the Denver movie theater shooting. Signs he had some trouble. He was dropping out of school. He'd seen a therapist. Signs he was in trouble. But do you ever think someone's going to go to that extent
And what was
of executing their whatever's troubling them?
What was interesting about what Chief Bratton was saying is that, okay, now you see that, say you see a Facebook post. Now can you take that to a judge and get a search warrant for someone's house based on what they post on a social media site, or what they say, or what they send in an email?
Right.
There was a lot of controversy, remember, in the Petraeus case. How is it that the government could read someone's private email with the authority granted by a court? Now, that obviously wasn't the case of violence and mass murder, but it's the same principle, right? So it's a question of what kind of society we want to live in.
Well, there have been cases, and I'm thinking of one, I believe like Simi Valley up in that area, where recently there was a young man who posted something on a website, and authorities took action, and they arrested him,
But I don't believe he was charged for that, though, ultimately. So, I mean, this is an evolving area, as Chief Bratton was saying on the phone. This is like sort of cutting edge of law enforcement and sociology and psychology.
Well, there's a saying, too, in law enforcement, the police is the community is the police. So the idea that we all contribute to keeping our communities safe, if you see something that is particularly a warning sign, it's really incumbent upon us all, whether we're parents, teachers, if we're involved with this person and we see something that's a red flag, we need to be able to go to somebody else and alert authorities or a parent or even a psychological expert that there could be trouble on the way.
You know, I think of that saying that came out after 9/11 regarding terrorism. If you see something, say something. It's so very easy, and it really is a simple reminder for people that, you know, it's okay to say something if you see something, and not to just sit back and wait, oh, well, maybe I should have. But, you know, obviously this is a case of a young person, and what kind of signs, what kind of alerts, that's going to be found out over time as authorities investigate where he lived, people he was friends with, the social networking. You know, his mother's dead. You can't talk with his mother and find out what was going on. Was he on medications? We just don't know if there was some mental illness going on there or what.
We're getting new information
now.
now.
Yeah, this is interesting. Laura, go ahead.
It's not good, unfortunately. The suspect in the Connecticut school shootings is Adam Lanza, 20. We had been hearing another name earlier, but it now appears that that was his brother, Ryan, 24, of Hoboken, New Jersey. And Adam, the son of the teacher at the school where the shootings occurred, and a second law enforcement official says that the boy's mother, Nancy Lanza, is presumed dead. These officials are speaking on the condition of anonymity, of course, a developing criminal investigation, as we've been saying all morning. Another part to report here, though, yes. Lanza's girlfriend and another friend are missing in New Jersey.
And also, Laura, it's saying here in this new information that Lanza is dead from a self-inflicted gunshot wound. So he talked about earlier wondering if it was an encounter with law enforcement or self-inflicted. That's the information we're getting now.
We don't think that there were any shots fired at the school. Those were some of the reports that were coming out, and, you know, we can't say that we can fully vet this right now. This is just very preliminary information. We want to remind everybody at home, you know, the account may be amended over time.
It is saying, though, that there were 3 weapons, 2 handguns, a Glock, and a 6-hour, and then that .223 caliber hunting rifle that we were talking about earlier, and showed. Although it's not clear that was used, because this latest report, which is from the Associated Press, saying that the rifle was still in the car. They believe that he drove his mother's car to the scene of the shootings after perhaps killing her. That's that secondary crime scene that state police were talking about. And then went inside with 2 pistols, apparently.
The clarification now about the 2 brothers is important to note because, again, all morning we were hearing Ryan Lanza, and then you heard that there was a Facebook posting that he wrote that said, "Wasn't me, I was at work." It makes sense now why somebody would post that if it was his little brother, Adam Lanza, who did the shooting. Ages are different, 24 and 20. Adam, the younger one, 20 years old. But there's also a report that maybe he had Ryan's ID with him. Why that would be, I have no idea. But that explains the confusion this morning.
Yes. But the disturbing part is that Lanza's girlfriend, I mean, it's all disturbing, but the newest information coming out, Lanza's girlfriend and another friend are missing in New Jersey. So we don't know if there's another location.
So we're basically, what, 7 hours after this has happened? And we're getting more information literally by the minute. One report is that they simply transposed, law enforcement mixed up the brothers' first names because they had them both in custody. Or one was in custody, the other was dead. But this information about his girlfriend and another friend missing, it's certainly chilling.
Okay. We are putting together information. We're waiting for another call-in, and as soon as we get the word that that call has been connected. Okay.
Yes, Josh Stepakok is joining us right now.
Yes. Josh, you're live on Fox 11. Josh Stepakov, we should remind our viewers, was one of the children who was at the Los Angeles Jewish Community Center shooting. This was an event that took place in August of 1999, and Josh has been kind of an outspoken person in recent years on the proliferation of guns and just what he went through as a young person. Josh, can you hear us?
Hi, how are you?
Well, a very sad day for us, of course, but we thank you for...
Very unfortunate morning.
It is. Thank you for calling in, and just your perspective on this. I spoke to you briefly on the phone, so I know that you have been watching, we're looking at
that's
tape from
another-
back in those days,
that was
and
another-
unfortunately, it looks very
Oh.
reminiscent of what we saw this morning in Connecticut. Children holding hands and being let out by authorities.
That's not right
What
now.
went through your
That's
mind
back
when
in
you heard this today and saw it?
1999.
I was completely just in awe. I couldn't believe that something almost identical to what happened to me, but even worse, had happened. I couldn't believe that we've stood idly by for the last 13 years, and tragic events like this are still able to happen. I was just completely speechless, really. I couldn't
Josh,
wrap my head around it.
Josh, we really appreciate you joining us. Obviously, this brings back the terrible memories. We spoke with some mental health professionals earlier, talking about the value of counseling for survivors, about talking about what happened.
Yes.
Was that your experience as a young boy?
Oh yeah, I agree with that 100%. Throughout the past 13 years, I've done many different kinds of therapy. I've gone to different therapists. Doing what I'm doing right now. Talking to you guys has been the most beneficial thing for me. And anybody who goes through traumatic events, the common thing is to keep it to yourself and to try to get over it. But in reality, I've found that talking to people and just coming to grips with what happened is the most beneficial thing.
Josh,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
well, I'm looking at this scene here with these little children from back when this happened in the synagogue here in our area. Josh, how old were you at that time?
I was 6 years old.
And you mentioned that you had been through a lot of therapy yourself. Did you have to seek that out on your own? Did your family encourage you? I mean, how did you continue that healing process for yourself?
Originally, I think it was kind of encouraged by the hospital that I was at, and then it was kind of always spoken of in my family, and my parents always left it up to me. They said if I want to do it, they'll support it. If I don't want to, they'll support that too. They didn't want me to be in any situation that I didn't want to be in. So immediately after the shooting, I was 6, I was 7. I wasn't really able to make those decisions. But as I grew older and more mature, by the age of 16, I decided to go back to therapy for additional help. And I've gone on and off since then. It's always been something that I found beneficial, and it's always something that I thought I should do. So.
Josh, you and I spoke, I think it was about a year and a half ago, and you looked at the clips with me for the first time, like what we're seeing on the air right now. And you described what was going through your mind. You were such a young child, and how you sort of internalized what you saw, because we think of it as an adult. But 6 years old is fragile, just the very beginning.